All right, now I want to demonstrate some of the functions or functionality related to Jupyter Notebook. And Jupyter Notebook is going to be the primary software that you're going to be using for your assignments. This is considered to be an IDE, which is stands for Integrated Development Environment. And I'm going to be opening up this software. It's directly from my Start menu. And I'm going to type in Jupyter. And the one that I'm interested in is Jupyter Notebook. Now be careful, there's a Jupyter Lab. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in Jupyter Notebook. So once you click on that, there is going to be a browser-based application, right? So whatever your default browser is, it's going to go ahead and open that up, and then it's going to have a user interface that looks like this. So this is a browser-based web application. I'm using currently Chrome, but it could be used through Microsoft Edge, Safari, Firefox, and so on. Now, with Jupyter Notebook, once you open up that software, it's also going to open up another application in the back end, and you're gonna want to leave this running. It looks like this. So this is necessary. Don't exit out of this when you are going to be interacting with Jupyter Notebook. If you close this, then you won't be able to interact with the Jupyter Notebook. So I'm going to minimize this. And now what I'm interested in is I'm interested in a new notebook template. What this is pointing to is my default working directory. And my default working directory is, I'm going to show you how you can figure that out on your end. But basically, it's my default working directory on my local computer. So here's my C drive, there's a users folder, and then I have my user alias right here, which is a folder. And inside this directory, I have a whole bunch of files. These files are what's shown here as well on the browser. Now, when I open up a new notebook, the way that works is I'm going to go to the top right here where it says new, and then I am going to click on that and select Python 3, and it will open up a tab on my browser, and here is a notebook file. So I could give this notebook file a name. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to call this notebook file example. Don't worry too much about the checkpoints. The date will look dated at times. That's nothing to be concerned about. But this is pretty much the user interface that you're going to be interacting with a lot. The way that you're going to be navigating through this is you'll be clicking on this cell. And this is what's considered a code cell. Now, there are other types of cells. For example, if I go to this dropdown right here, I have a markdown cell, and then I have some additional categories I can select from. Heading, if I want to provide some sort of text heading title. So just make a note that whenever you're coding, because sometimes you might be accidentally pressing on a key that might convert this code cell into one of these categories. So if you're trying to execute the code and it's not working, just click on that cell, make sure it is on the code category, and you should be okay. Now, there could be additional code cells, and that's usually going to be the case when you're handling assignments and practicing. Each code cell could handle either one line code or multiple lines of code. Really just depends on what you're trying to accomplish here. But there is a menu system. So you got the file, edit, view. You'll want to get familiar with some of the keyboard shortcuts, and that can be found under the help menu. So when I go to help and keyboard shortcuts, I can see all the different things I can do here. You're not going to be interacting with or just using all of the keyboard shortcuts. There might be some in particular that you might find handy, but if keyboard shortcuts is not your thing, then you can go ahead and use these action buttons that are here, as well as on the other menu items that we have right here. Okay. Now I'm going to do an example of hello world on the first code cell. So I want to make sure that I have my cursor right here. It's on that code cell. It's highlighted in green, and do a print hello world. I am going to use a print function in Python. So I'm going to type in this keyword print, and then open up parentheses. And then inside here, I'm going to write the words hello world. And since hello world is considered a text type, then what we're going to do is we're going to enclose this with double quotes, or it could even be single quotes. Either one will do when it comes down to trying to write a text, which technically we call this as a string data type. So I'll say hello world, just like that, right? Now, the print function is going to be used a lot. It's going to help also when it comes down to some of the unit testing of your code. But ultimately, what the print function does is it outputs information. So when I want to run this cell, I want to see what the output is. I can select this play button right here where it says run cell, but I can also do a keyboard shortcut, which is Control Enter, and it will also execute the cell, right? So let's go ahead and click on run. You can see that this is what the output is without the print function being shown, right? So that is an example. Notice when I hit run, a new code cell appeared. So I can go ahead and put another syntax right here. Let's say, for example, I do a print function and say hello, and then I'm going to get out of the parentheses. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to do another print function, and then I'm going to say world. And then I'm going to hit run and see the output here, right? You can see that it's structured a little bit differently. Now, one thing about Jupyter Notebook is once you have installed Anaconda, open it up and play around with some of the syntax here in these code cells, you might not see the button, the number system right here representing the code line. You'd want to activate that by going to View on top and then selecting Toggle Line Numbers. So when I click on that, it's going to go ahead and turn off that number system. And I encourage all of you to activate this because it's just easier to refer to certain lines of code if there's any issue. And as I do reviews of your work, if there's a certain issue, I can refer to that particular line. So it'll be a good idea to have this activated. Okay. Again, when we opened up Jupyter Notebook, this screen appeared along with it. And make sure that this is open in the background. If it is not, then you're going to have an issue when it comes down to executing the code. And if you are having an issue, then what you'd want to do is go to the kernel up top, and then you can go ahead and say restart kernel. And then from there, try to go ahead and run your lines of code, right? So if you're ever trying to execute some code in a code cell and it's not running, it's not outputting, then it would be a good idea to first check and make sure that the cell itself is categorized as a code cell, and then try running it. If it's not running, then go ahead and go to kernel, and then you can say restart, and then it will restart the engine in the back end, which is this screen right here, and then you should be good to go. Okay. Now, so these are two examples of printing out hello world using the print function. I want to also just kind of show you how commenting works. So if we want to use a commenting, we can do a single line comment style, which is going to be a hashtag or a pound sign that looks like this. And this is considered to be a single line comment. So when I say single line comment and hit enter, and if I start typing something like MIS433, this part right here is considered to be Python code. And it's not part of a comment that we have here. Now, if I wanted to have this as part of my output in my Python code, I won't be able to just simply have MIS433 underneath here in line 2. I'd have to wrap this inside a print function. And since MIS433 is considered a string, I would have to wrap it in quotes, and then I can go ahead and execute it. This time I'm going to hit Control Enter so you can see how the output would look, right? Now, I'm going to open up another code cell. Now, this time, because I use Control Enter, what happened previously when I hit the run button up top, it executed the code, the cell, and then it opened up a new code cell. Now, when you hit Control Enter, it's just going to execute that code cell. It's not going to create a new code cell. If you want a new code cell and you're doing keyboard shortcuts, what you could do after you've executed, you can see that this cell has a blue border to it. Not a green border. If it's a green border, that means that it's in editing mode, and I want it to be in a blue border. And when it's in a blue border, then I can hit the B key on my keyboard, and it will create a new code line this way. And then if I want to enter something inside of it, I can hit the Enter key, and then I can start editing here. Now, I want to give you an example of a multi-line comment, and a multi-line comment would be something like this. It would be 3 double quotes, or it could be 3 single quotes. And then I can go ahead and type in anything here. So I can say something like multi-line commenting or comment style, right? So anything in between these quotes, these triple quotes, right? I have 3 lines right here inside of it. This is not going to throw any sort of syntax error, right? Just because we're using a multi-line commenting system. Then I can go ahead and say print, let's say MIS, and I'm going to say print, and let's say I'll do 433, right? See how that looks like, right? So what the output looks like, right? We have MIS in one line and then 433 in the other line. The comments are not part of the output. So commenting is going to be useful for documentation. It's also useful for if you're writing notes and trying to understand something within your code. You can go ahead and use these commenting styles. I use commenting styles a lot when it comes down to giving you certain questions, problem statements. I put them in the form of comments, either a single line comment or a multi-line comment, or I might even do it as a markdown cell that looks something like this. So if I'm not going to use keyboard shortcuts to create a new code cell right below this, I can go ahead and use this plus sign right here. It's going to create one right here, right at the bottom. I'll put my cursor here, click it, so make sure it's in editing mode. It's highlighted in green. And if I want to change the type of cell this is, let's say to a markdown cell, that means I can go ahead and say example of markdown cell, right? Now, if I execute this and hit run, it's just going to look like this. It's a piece of text, right? And then it creates a new code cell by default since I did hit the run button, and then I can start coding in this manner, right? Now, this is this cell, since it is a coding cell, keep in mind that it could also be used as a calculator in the backend. So this is an interactive console. I'm using print statements right now, and we're getting some outputs of these print statements, but I can also do some math on it. So let's say if I say 2 plus 2, and then I want to execute this and see what the answer is, it'll go ahead and give me that answer. So I can do complex math expressions, and it'll output that just like a calculator. Notice here when I wrote 2 plus 2, I didn't put anything in quotes. I didn't use a print statement or anything like that. Very similar to a calculator, as I said, but depending on what it is that you're trying to do, really, you might want to include it in a print statement, right? Now, for example, let me go ahead and just cell right here, say 2 plus 2, right? And let's look at what the output would be if we run this, right? Now, when I say print 2 plus 2, it gives me the same output as a 2 plus 2 here. Now, the reason why it's giving me the same output is because if you just have one line of code, like a 2 plus 2 type of statement, by default, it's going to automatically in the backend wrap 2 plus 2 in print statements without you explicitly having to write that, right? Now, if I have 2 plus 2, and then let's say I'll do 3 plus 2, and I'm going to run this code cell right here, see what happens is it will only pay attention to the last line of code, which is 3 plus 2, ignore 2 plus 2, right? So you want to be super careful when it comes down to putting different math expressions or any sort of syntax in one code cell where you have multiple lines. And if you're trying to output information like what 2 plus 2 is as well as 3 plus 2, then you would want to wrap this inside a print statement. So I'm going to wrap both of these just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit the run button. And now I have the answer for 2 plus 2 as well as for 3 plus 2. Right. So print statements, I would say, would be a very good idea to just kind of get used to wrapping things in print statements things that you want to output in your code. So we'll discuss more about this later on. This is just giving you just kind of a quick idea of how to use Jupyter Notebook and some basic syntax related to commenting and multi-line code cells and things like that. So, all right, hopefully this gives you some basic understanding of how to use Jupyter Notebook. Now, if there is a code cell that you don't want and you want to delete it, you can select that particular code cell. And then from there, there's an edit, and then you can say delete. And that will simply just delete whatever it is that you're looking for. So if I want to delete this blank one right here, I'll go to edit, delete cells, and I'm good to go. So my notebook contains these code cells right here, right? And let's say, for example, I want to save my Jupyter notebook? Well, the good thing about this is that it automatically saves, but it doesn't hurt to just press the save button just to make sure that even the last piece of code cell that you interacted with is saved. And then you can go directly to your default directory. Now, remember, this is the default directory in your local computer. And this is my default directory that my Jupyter Notebook is pointing to. If you're not sure what your default directory your Jupyter Notebook is pointing to, what you could do is in a code cell, if you type in cd ... and then execute that, I'm sorry, not ... just cd, it will let you know what your default working directory is that Jupyter is tied to, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I recommend reviewing some syntax that you might see online or through your readings, and use that syntax, put it inside here into Jupyter Notebook, run it, see how it looks like. You're going to get errors as you start to type the syntax and run it. Look at the errors and try to correct them, right? This is part of the process. This is part of learning programming, right? Okay. Thanks for watching.